Prenuptial agreements.
I mean, she had more money than me, if anything.
Prenuptial agreements.
No, because if you are telling everybody get a prenuptial agreement, I am. No, I don't agree.
I am telling everybody to get a prenuptial
because then
agreement.
that's basically saying, like, it does not matter what you say or what you do. I don't trust you. Y'all are basing that, well, because I don't know this person or because I don't trust this person. That's what y'all are starting it off with.
Oh, it's starting off with, I like my stuff and I want to keep my stuff.
And people change. You don't know what that person's going to do in 15, 20, 30 years.
I'm not sitting here saying that there is not a situation in which a prenuptial agreement is acceptable. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what you are stipulating is selfish.
A lot of people who say what you're saying right now have been burned bad. And welcome back to Unwoken, where the First Amendment is non-negotiable. Here today with Mr. Alex Mejia, Miss Alaina Abear, and Carter Semino back behind producing this gorgeous show. Sorry, it's been a while, y'all. Been a while, but we've been taking care of business around here. Now we're back. Hope y'all, everybody had a good start to their new year. Remember, the raffle, the AR-15 raffle for Unwoken, $10 a ticket. The drawing will be on February 9th on Instagram and Facebook Live. Remember that? Buy your tickets, get with me or Panda, and we'll get you set up. All right, diving into a heavy one.
Ooh,
big one here. That's what she said. I literally set y'all up for somebody to say that's what she said, and nobody did it. You see, that's the disappointment that I live with.
We were distracted by your chest hair. Please don't. If a nipple comes out, I'm leaving, I swear. You trying to make money off your chest hair, Scotty?
Yeah, I should. It's gorgeous.
Monetize that hair.
Monetize it. Sponsor me. What is it called? Garnier?
I want a 40-year-old virgin your ass.
Oh, that's wrong.
No.
That's wrong.
That would be some good primo content, though, Scotty. You get some views there.
Ripping that. Get so many views.
No.
You don't even need a professional. We could do it.
Hell no. All right. So today we're going to be talking about the top 10 reasons that people get divorced. Now, here's a good statistic to go by. The U.S. is 6th in the world in the divorce rate, but it has gone down since 2010. So 2010, it was at 3.6%. Now it's down to 2.6. So that's a whole percentage point there. But we have the top 10 reasons, actually, that Carter's going to pull up on screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through all 10 of them, each give our input on them. And if you agree, drop a comment and let's see what you think about it. And also make sure to go to Acadiana Cast Network on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Make sure to like, subscribe, and view Unwoken Podcast. Check me out, Lord Scotty D on Instagram. Alex has no social media. Alaina M.A. Bear on Instagram. And let's get to it.
When one person goes outside of the relationship to get their needs met, whether it is physical or sexual, this can doom a relationship.
That's the same thing, physical or sexual.
It is very difficult to get trust back once a partner feels betrayed. Extramarital affairs are responsible for the 20 to 40% breakdown of most marriages and end in divorce. This is one of the most common causes of divorce. The reasons why people cheat aren't as cut and dry as our anger may lead us to believe. Anger and resentment are common underlying reasons for cheating, along with differences in sexual appetite and lack of emotional intimacy. Infidelity often begins as a seemingly innocent friendship, says cheating expert Ruth Houston. Quote, "It starts as an emotional affair, which later becomes a physical affair. Infidelity is one of the primary reasons for divorce. It is one of the legal divorce reasons, besides living apart for more than a year and subjecting your partner to cruelty, parentheses, mental or physical."
All right, so the first reason that people get divorced, obviously, infidelity and extramarital affairs. So everybody knows how I feel about cheating.
Mm-hmm. Which is?
No going back. One time, that's it. And me and you got into a pretty heated argument or debate about this one time.
Yeah. Saying
that whenever kids are in the play, it becomes different.
Yes. It complicates the situation.
I don't think kids are... I understand what you're saying with the whole kid thing. It can be make things more difficult. I'm divorced, but that number one reason wasn't our reason. But if it would have been, I wouldn't have just stayed, and I don't think he would have either. If that had been our circumstance, it wasn't our circumstance, but and I have kids. So if that would have happened to me, I'd have been done, because you can't, just with any relationship, whether there's kids involved or not, like if that trust is gone, that trust is gone. Like who knows if they'll be able to earn it back. Like, can you earn that back? Like, you're not 5.
I don't think you can.
Yeah, your kid can do something wrong. Oh, you can do this again, when mommy can trust you with it or daddy can trust you with it. But we're looking at something totally different. And
as far as a relationship.
Yeah, it's a relationship. You're not a kid. So, like, if that trust is lost, like, it's not like you're 5. Like I said, you can't just earn that back.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying stay with the person. That's not my opinion. My opinion is I think that it's a complicated situation and that it's left up to the individuals, because I can sit here and rattle off a bunch of situations where I would at least understand why someone would remain in that relationship despite the infidelity. I'm not saying that I'm for or against it. I'm not saying that anyone should commit anything like that, cheat, right, do anything like that. And I'm not exactly saying that you should stay or you should leave. I'm saying that some situations, especially when kids are involved, it does complicate it, and that it's left up to the individual to make that decision on whether or not they want to work it out. I know of a couple in which they knew that one of them committed infidelity, but they stayed together, one for the kids, but two because they're in business together. Ooh. So I was
that's a tough one.
Granted, they're both miserable, I'm gonna be honest with you, but they stayed together for that reason. It's like the reasons that they stayed together, I guess they would argue, were above the actual infidelity, so that's why they remained together.
I'm not saying that it doesn't complicate it. A divorce is complicated to begin with.
Yeah, obviously.
So, I mean, I don't know. I just look at it from the outside in and I say, all right, if one of my buddies came to me and told me that and there were kids involved, I'd flat out tell them, you are not going to respect yourself. If you go back to her, your kids aren't going to respect you at all once they find out what she did to you and you went back to them. And I don't want to hear this notion that the kid's going to love you more for staying with the mom, because the kid's going to grow up to resent that fact. And what are they going to learn from it? Oh, this is okay. That's why a lot of times you see people who do cheat that are younger, they've grown up in a house where they saw that behavior and thought, okay, that's normal. It's like Gabrielle Union said in one of her, I think it was E! News, they had a little interview with her about her previous marriage before Dwayne Wade, and she said, I felt entitled to cheat because she knew that her partner was cheating on her, and she also knew that she was bringing home the bacon, bringing in the money to the household. So she said, well, I'm bringing in the money. I can do whatever I want. I feel entitled to do so. And she said, my dad was the same way.
Yeah.
He did the same thing. So people get taught that behavior sometimes.
Are you saying that in some situations that it's acceptable to cheat?
No, absolutely not.
No, I don't think.
I'm saying people who grow up, like a kid, if he grew up seeing that kind of behavior being tolerated,
that kid's gonna think it's okay.
Is gonna think that it's acceptable.
He'll go through his whole teens and adulthood thinking that is okay.
I disagree. I think that it still boils down to the individual. We've had this conversation before. I think that the same argument can be made hypothetically for both sides. That if a kid is brought up in a household where infidelity was prevalent, then they can make the choice either A, to become, to say, well, this is what's normal, this is what's accepted, so they would not see a problem with doing it themselves. But then there's the other one that would look at a different hypothetical that would state that, well, I see the pain that it brings and the unnecessary consequences that it brings to the situation, so I want to avoid that at all costs. So both arguments can be made.
I was in a psychology class freshman year, and my psychology professor's main focus of study was sex and marriage. And one of the things we did learn is that you're more likely to find cheating acceptable if you grow up in a household where you see one parent cheating. You're more likely to find that acceptable behavior.
So if you're just saying that it's more likely, I mean, I guess I can't necessarily disagree because I don't have any statistics. But at the end of the day, I guess I want to kind of ask a question to both of you. Why do y'all think people cheat, especially if they know that there's consequences? Do you think that they're doing it because they think they can get away with it, or do you think they do it because they want to get away from it?
I think they've tapped out of their relationship.
Y'all think that the reason why people commit infidelity is because they're not in the relationship anymore?
I think, yeah, one of the reasons they feel neglect, maybe in some cases.
Yeah.
They're not having that same sexual are not having the same great sex life at home or something like that, or they're getting into a fight at home. It could get into an argument, then run into somebody that they find slightly attractive or more attractive, and I guess they just feel obligated if somebody's giving them more attention.
Or like, what if they get bored or something, or just, they don't have that dating life still in the relationship anymore, so they feel like they need to venture out.
That'd be neglect in a sense, like being somebody gets complacent along those lines. And I think after reading this list, there's a lot of things that tie in. That's why it's number one, that infidelity is number one. I think a lot of these things that come into play on this list ties into that directly. You'll see. So let's hop into the next one.
All right, the next one is trouble with finances.
Ooh.
Money makes people funny, or so the saying goes. And it's true. If a couple is not on the same page about how the finances are going to be handled, it can lead to terrible problems. Why is divorce so common due to financial incompatibility? According to divorce statistics, a final straw reason for divorce is a lack of compatibility in the financial arena and causes almost 41% of divorce. Everything from spending habits and financial goals to one spouse making considerably more money than the other, causing a power struggle, can strain a marriage to the breaking point. Also, differences in how much money each partner brings into the marriage can also lead to power plays between a couple. Money really touches everything. It impacts people's lives, says Emmett Burns, brand marketing director for SunTrust. Clearly, money and stress do seem to go hand in hand for many couples. Financial troubles can be categorized as one of the biggest causes of divorce, following infidelity, the number one reason for divorce, as we just touched on. And once again, this comes from marriage.com.
Wow. Okay.
You should know about each other's finances.
This goes back to what we talked about.
What?
In the car.
What
That's got to be discussed before you get married or before you jump into a serious relationship. You've got, like, how is that not a topic of? I could see maybe like in your early 20s, maybe it might not be an issue, but as we all get older, like and you want to settle down with someone, that's kind of, you got to discuss that.
Yeah, the finance is a big thing.
Yeah.
So we talked about in the car the other day, and we've talked about on this show multiple times, how you're perfectly fine with your situation. Your wife's a doctor.
Oh, yeah. He makes money.
He's got it made.
Yeah, like at work the other day, they were like, I was like, yeah, like, we bought this sectional, and we could have paid cash, but we financed it. And they made the joke. They were like, "Oh, it was to build up your credit." And I was like, "No, she paid for it."
But so you don't have to deal with what it said in here, the power struggle or power dynamic, I guess.
Obviously.
Oh no.
Right, yeah.
You ever seen that meme or like that TikTok where like a lady where they're like, "Oh, what would you do if your wife made $500,000 a year?" And then you just see like some guy in like an apron, he's just cleaning the house, and he's just like, "And girls are players too." Like, that's me. I'm like girl. If I didn't like my job as much as I did, I'd be at the house. I'd be sweeping. I'm squeegeeing. I don't care. Like,
so you're good being the housewife.
Oh yeah, I'm okay with that. Oh yeah, because she's awesome. She's like, bring me the money. I'll spend it all day. I don't care. I get all the video games I want. Like, give me them dollars. You telling me I don't have to make it? You telling me I don't have to deal with people? You telling me I don't have to go to people and ask them like, hey, can you please pay me? I can just be like, give it to me now. I need new shoes. I need toothpaste. I need to put a new sofa in the house. I don't care. I'm gonna stay at home. I'll play my video games. I don't care. I'll cook. I'll do whatever she wants. I don't care.
Well, so to the larger point,
he was going
housewife Alex. Do you guys share a bank account? Do you do joint bank accounts? I know some couples do separately. Some do a joint bank account.
Yeah, it's actually funny you say that. So there was a Steve Harvey video, and he was one of the audience members stood up, and they were like, "Oh, Steve, here's my issue. Like, what is your advice?" And he was like, he said that he thinks that married couples need to have 5 bank accounts.
5?
5.
Okay.
1 for a personal checking and a personal savings for both. So that's 4.
Each on their own?
Yes, like
you have
husband
your own?
would have his own personal checking and savings, and then the wife would have her own personal checking and savings, and then there would be a joint account for just bills. Like we both bring the money, but we both like put into that joint account to pay the bills. And then your personal checking and your savings, that would be your own individual like spending and like whatever you want to finance or whatever
But
the
the
case may be.
savings, the savings should be. I feel like savings should be maybe joint.
Well, this is what he said in the video, right? And so before I got married, I was like, man, it's actually a good idea, because in my mind, I'm like, it saves all those complicated issues of dealing with money. And then I was talking to my manager at work. And I had told him that. He said, Alex, that's not fair to your wife to do that, because if, say, she decides to stay home and take care of the kids, well, she's not making any money. So she doesn't have anything to spend. So how is it fair to her that she sacrificed a career to take care of your family and that she has to suffer for that? Because you have to make all the financial decisions that you're not going to give her anything. And I was like, oh man. And at that point, that's when I was like, all right, we're making a joint account. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, I do understand that the idea is that whenever you get divorced, that they can literally just go into the bank account and just take everything. And like, there's nothing legally you can do about it because it's their money as well. But I was like, in my mind, I'm like,
prenuptial agreements.
I mean, she had more money than me. If anything, she needed it, not me. But
prenuptial agreements.
But I knew that going in, and I was like,
I'm gonna say it
once I heard that, I was
those
like,
these days.
Yeah, I was like, once I heard that, I was like, all right, like that makes sense.
Let me say this: get a fucking prenuptial agreement. If you don't get a prenup in this day and age, partner,
no,
partner,
nope,
something's wrong, T.
You're saying no?
No,
because you are starting off with the premise that I do not trust this person. Why are you getting married to that person if you don't trust them?
It's the reality. It's actually having a reality.
No. If I am considering getting a prenuptial agreement with somebody, I don't trust that person.
I can see how you definitely like.
I'm not saying never get one. I would say for the very outlier of individuals, meaning the people that make ridiculous amounts of money, it's like you run a huge risk of women just wanting to be with you for your money. I understand that. But for the average Joe, if you are telling everybody get a prenuptial agreement, No, I don't agree.
I am telling everybody to get a prenuptial
because then
agreement.
that's basically saying like it does not matter what you say or what you do. I don't trust you.
No, but I think anything could happen, and you just want to.
No, it's not. You're taking it the wrong way. You're taking it the wrong way. I'm saying humans are imperfect.
Well,
we all know that.
Yeah, no, of course. But
Anything can happen.
You're making the claim like everyone should get a prenuptial agreement. I'm like, no.
Yes.
No.
It may not be for everyone, but
yeah, that's what I say.
It may not be for everyone, but I didn't have one in my first marriage, but we didn't have too many issues with that. But moving forward, if I ever got married again, I would definitely do it.
I mean, I would say it's
just a different world today. It's just, and anything can happen. I wouldn't go into a relationship assuming something would happen, but you just.
Well, it's like y'all are basing that. Well, because I don't know this person, or because I don't trust this person, that's what y'all are starting it off with.
No, it started off with I like my stuff and I want to keep my stuff,
and I don't trust you enough to make sure that you're not going to take it from me. Finish that statement.
No, I think you can trust somebody.
It is based on a lack of trust. If you don't trust that person, why are you choosing to be with them?
But you can't. People change. You don't know what that person's going to do in 15, 20, 30 years.
Okay, I mean,
like just what if?
Yeah,
we prepare for everything else in life.
Plan. We always have a backup plan, right?
I mean, worst case scenario, whenever you get married is 50-50. A prenuptial agreement is for anything that you brought into the relationship, meaning that's only for the individuals that are the exception, meaning the billionaires, the millionaires, the people that have businesses, have investments, have things that they potentially can lose by getting with someone.
So if I
get married to you and all you have is a house, it's worst case scenario, we sell and you get half.
So let me put it to you like this. Say we're married already, and I buy stock in, let's say, Waiter. Okay? Say I buy stock in Waiter.
Terrible investment.
I know. Well, actually, you know what I did buy? the day they announced the quarantine, I bought 100 shares in Waiter. So what if I buy X amount of shares in a certain company while we're married, and this thing just fucking takes off? Okay? By law, the money I make from that stock after I sell it, she gets half.
Yeah.
But I bought it.
Yeah.
While y'all were married.
But I bought it.
A prenuptial agreement doesn't protect you after you're married. It's before.
No, you could say in a prenuptial agreement, whatever stocks I invest in, I keep. If we're going off of that, because it is true in the state of Louisiana, once you get married, anything you acquire after that is 50-50.
Yes.
What I'm saying, a prenuptial agreement says, if I were to put in a prenuptial agreement, whatever stocks that I buy into, I want to come to me.
While you're married?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm saying I'm protecting it. I'm protecting myself.
Scotty, do you not see my point?
I
with
do
what
see your
you're
point.
saying?
I do see
You're
your point.
starting off this marriage. Trust, Scotty. A prenuptial agreement is more or less to be put in place to protect any assets that you have before you establish a relationship. And it's based on the precondition that I don't trust you enough to know that you're not going to run away with my stuff, right? But that's only going into the relationship. But once you get married, everything you own is 50-50. But you're saying, well, I can put into that prenuptial agreement a statute of limitations, which basically allows me the opportunity to put conditions in place that if you don't abide by them, right, that we have the right to divorce. Whenever you say that, that is coming off of the precondition that I do not trust you enough that whatever we establish together, I am afraid you will take from me.
So how did we establish together the stock to buy in?
You said you would buy into it yourself.
Yes. What if I bought into the stock while we were together in a marriage?
Then whatever you make is 50-50.
Exactly. That's what I say. A prenuptial
I'm saying
agreement.
that's worst case scenario. That's just first of all. That's
No.
That
That's
is
looking out for
selfish.
yourself.
That
That's
is
looking out for
selfish.
yourself.
Because why would you go into a marriage planning on building a future together? Because there's no other reason to get married.
Right, you can.
Unless you are trying to establish yourself and your future. Why would you do that and say, whatever I create while we're together is mine?
It's just in case.
Why would
Just
you
in case
marry
he
that
gets a
person?
crazy
You see, here's the
person.
problem. Here's the problem, though. A lot of people who say what you're saying right now have been burned bad.
I'm not sitting here saying that there is not a situation in which a prenuptial agreement is acceptable. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what you are stipulating is selfish. It is, Scotty.
But no, I'm not saying I'm not going to use that money for us.
And it's a lack of trust. So why get married?
He would use the money on them.
But
He
I'm saying
just
in
would,
case.
In case.
Just if she
case.
goes haywire and like cheats on him, then he's done. We know that. So
What I'm saying
he
is,
wants to be able to take his shit.
I want to be able to have that share. If I decide any money I make, and if I'm married, any money I make is going to go towards my family, obviously. But what I'm saying is, in the case something was to happen, in case those stocks, anything I made off of that, would be
While
mine.
you're married.
but it would protect me in case something did happen.
But you started investing in him before you?
No, it started
No.
investing. Wow.
After.
Yes, I made the decision to buy into this stock.
After you got married.
I took
Scotty,
time.
Scotty, let me hit you.
And I would
with
put that in the
some
prenuptial agreement to begin with.
married man information.
Tell me,
All
lay it
right,
on me.
So
Lay it on me, Almighty.
if anything I do is for the betterment of our relationship and our future, why would I decide to make any decision to better our future and then decide to go back on it later?
I wouldn't go back on it.
That's what you're doing with a prenuptial agreement.
No, you're not.
That if I don't trust you enough that while we are married that you won't cheat on me, why marry that person in the first place if you can't trust that they are not going to cheat on
Well,
you?
you're going into it obviously thinking that it's just hunky-dory. You know, everything.
You realize that people are
I'm not
imperfect.
saying that no prenuptial agreement is acceptable.
It's just in case we get car insurance,
I'm saying
right?
that, like, if me,
It's
fair enough,
just
Jesus.
like insurance
All right.
for yourself.
We will agree to disagree.
Good, because we got to move on.
Yeah. Finances always get a big rise.
I could see both. Wait, I
Yeah.
see both though.
Yeah.
I do see your point.
I personally would get one if I got married.
And I see your point too. I just don't agree with it.
I was like, I want my wife to have all her money. I know, no, wait, no, you want some of that 50%.
Alex says he wants the 50%.
Yeah, you can sit in the kitchen all day long with that 50% there. bud.
Oh, what?
We're going to go to Spirit Halloween, get him a maid outfit.
Love it. All right. Number 3, lack of communication. Communication is crucial in marriage, and not being able to communicate effectively, like Scotty, quickly leads to resentment and frustration for both impacting all aspects of a marriage.
Lies.
On the other hand, good communication is the foundation of a strong marriage. When two people are sharing a life together, they must be able to talk about what they need and be able to understand and try to meet the needs of their partner. Yelling at your spouse, not talking enough throughout the day, making nasty comments to express yourself are all unhealthy methods of communication that need to be ditched in a marriage. Besides, when couples stop talking to each other, they can feel isolated and lonely and stop caring about one another altogether. This can lead to the breakdown of the relationship. Poor communication is one of the biggest reasons for 65% of divorces. Practicing mindful communication to change age-old marriage mistakes can be hard, but it's well worth the effort to improve and save your relationship.
Communication, one of the biggest things I've learned about in my past 2 relationships. No, I'd say that's a huge thing, because whenever it comes down to it, if you're not happy with something that your partner's doing, the worst thing you can do, just as well as anything in life, is let that all pin up inside of you and break down. Because if you don't tell somebody, like if you get mad, I use this analogy every time. If a woman's mad at you for not taking out the trash, chances are she's not mad at you for not taking out the trash. There's something you've been doing over time for the past few weeks, months, or whatever it may be.
But she's held it in for
She's
so long.
held it in,
and I was in the past guilty of those kinds of things. You know, you don't want to make, you think like, oh, it's really not that big of a deal. And then like 10 more times, you know, something happens and, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And then finally and to me, that's where the yelling will take place, or like the bickering.
Can you talk about some of the communication things that are imperative in a marriage? Like not just like, oh, I need him to take out the trash and I'm getting mad and holding it in. Like what are some things that actively you need to communicate about?
I think just every day. I mean, whether it's finances or whatever, I'm not saying you have to talk about finances and stuff every day, but you at least need to spend like 20, 30 minutes with your spouse, even if, you know, you're both tired or whatever. Like at least spend 10, 15 minutes just seeing how each other's day was, seeing how they're doing mentally, just checking on their life. I don't have a particular thing necessarily that everybody's relationship's different. Everybody's relationship needs different things. People are all different.
Or like, it bothered me whenever you did this the other day.
Right. Like instead of holding it in, like it'll never get better if you don't talk about it, and you don't have to be mean about it or whatever. Just like, hey, can we talk about this? It kind of bothered me. You know,
but also like people change, and like throughout as you get older, like your goals change and whatnot. So with your partner, I find it's important to make sure that you're still aligned on the same goals as you're going forward.
Yeah, like constantly talk about, okay, where, you know, maybe every 5 months, you know, bring up the conversation like, hey, like where do we want to see ourselves like in 2 years, or, you know, even a year from now, what are our goals as a couple, you know?
Yeah, I know there was like some kind of study that had saw where they can rate the chances that someone's going to get divorced with a 95% accuracy based on how many negative interactions per positive reaction that a couple has. If they have too many positive reactions versus per negative reaction, like 5 positive and 1 negative, or I can't remember exactly what it was. The idea was that it was just too many, like 12 to 1, positive to negative. They don't work out, but then the same goes if there's too many negative to positive. And I think the idea was somewhere along the lines of whenever people communicate, it's like, well, every single time I'm talking to this person, there's all these emotions that I have that's behind the conversation, that's working in to the conversation, that it starts off with, I had this at lunch or whatever, and then it turns into, oh, this is what you did the other day and I didn't like that. And it's because it's been something that's been bothering them for so long. But the same goes for too many positive interactions versus negative reactions. It means you're avoiding conflict. I
think it goes back to like elementary. Like you have to know how to communicate your feelings and just be like, hey, like before we start this conversation, just to let you know, I'm a bit agitated right now. Yeah. So like if it's coming out a little rough, like I apologize in advance. Like I just need to get it out.
I feel like everything we've seen on this list so far, this is probably what therapy is the best for.
Yeah, I feel like this could you could definitely bring someone in on this. This topic is I'm not saying an easy fix. Communication is work, whether it's with your friends, your boys, your whoever, your spouse.
It's never ending.
It's
never ending.
No,
growth.
it's never
Yeah,
ending.
I
Like
think
it's always you have to work at
Well,
it.
it's never ending growth. You can never be best. You can never have the best communication skills with somebody. You always have to constantly work.
Right.
Like for instance, I mean, I'm horrible about telling you about my feelings. I'm horrible about that shit. I just won't do it. I mean, I express how I view things, but feelings wise, maybe not. I don't care. I mean, that's how I view it.
Yeah,
But we all have to always be constantly working towards opening up that dialogue
Right.
about how we're feeling about certain things.
Yeah, and I
Right.
think that kind of boils into effective communication, because the idea is that like people have different languages. You know, like I've noticed that whenever I talk to my wife, she talks in this roundabout manner. She doesn't talk about exactly what
The
like.
issues.
Oh, I wonder what that's like.
Like instead of saying like hey, would you mind taking out the trash, she'll make a remark like, oh hey, the trash is getting full. You know what I mean? Like it's like for guys, we're just like, hey, the trash is getting full, would you mind taking it out? And it's because we understand that there is that chance of conflict, but we understand that it's worth it to have that communication. But for women, they want to avoid conflict, so if they don't propose it directly, then there's no way that they can actively create conflict. So that's what I find with at least my wife. That's what she tends to do. She's trying to avoid conflict by just not being direct. And I think that's the thing that kind of affects a lot of people, is like y'all aren't communicating effectively. It's like you don't know what she means, and like what happens is that I'll be talking to my wife and I'll state something directly, and then she'll be like, oh, so you're saying this, and I'm like, I never said that, you implied that. I'm like, what I'm saying is direct. You think that it's like what she does is that she speaks so indirectly a lot of times that she doesn't realize that that whenever someone's being direct, she doesn't realize it.
Can we get your wife on the show? Just so she can rail Alex.
She just punches me in the
every
face.
every
like,
Get
time
back in the kitchen, you little.
go
every
make
time
me a
he-
sandwich.
It's like every time he says something, she'll just be underneath the table and just kick
start
him in the
kicking.
shin.
But I mean, I love my wife. I'm just saying that that's what I noticed, and I noticed that because she does that, I noticed that I'm like, okay, well, like here's how we need to like communicate with each other. Like I'm a little bit more direct. I understand that you're a little bit indirect, but like it's like I'm helping each other communicate in the way that the other one understands. And I think that that's really, I would say, is hurts a lot of people. Is like, you either want to avoid conflict for too long and it builds up, and then it's basically a ball of yarn that by the time you start pulling at strings to take it apart, you realize that you're tightening other strings. So it's like it's too complex and people just don't want to deal with it, so they get divorced. Or I think that it's just they don't know how to communicate with each other because they never established like a base ground for communication, and so that there's a lot of miscommunication and you would run
That
into
should be established
issues.
like in the dating phase
Well,
or
it's
the
not like-
talking phase.
I
Like
didn't
just
realize this.
communication.
I didn't realize this until like after 5 years of dating my wife. It's like as much as we talk, it's like you pick up on their mannerisms. There's a lot of how would you say nonverbal communication that's taking place as well. So there's a lot that's going on when you're interacting with an individual. You never know exactly what they're thinking all the time. It's just over time you learn that.
All right. Well, let's jump into the next one.
Constant arguing, from bickering about chores to arguing about the kids. Incessant arguing kills many relationships. Couples who seem to keep having the same argument over again often do so because they feel they're not being heard or appreciated. Many find it hard to see the other person's point of view, which leads to a lot of arguments without ever coming to a resolution. This can ultimately be a cause of divorce for 57.7% of couples.
I think we just covered that.
I did,
Basically,
yeah, absolutely.
that's just conflict
that
resolution.
goes with just communication.
Yeah, that's just conflict resolution.
Absolutely.
It's
I think the next one is going to be one of the biggest ones that I want to touch on because I think it is one of the biggest common factors.
I knew you're going to love this one.
Wait, what is it? What is it?
Well, Andrew Tate, there you go. Weight gain. It may seem awfully superficial or unfair, but weight gain is one of the main reasons for divorce. Wow. It may seem odd, but weight gain is also one of the leading causes of divorce. In some cases, a significant amount of weight gain causes the other spouse to become less physically attracted, while for others, weight gain takes a toll on their self-esteem, which trickles into issues with intimacy and can even become a cause of divorce.
And let's
sad.
but let's just say this off back. This has nothing to do, and I'm not talking about when it comes down to a woman having a child, because we all know how hard that is at first for some people to lose weight. I mean, and so we're not taking that into the equation. All right, let's exclude a woman who just had a child. Okay,
Like letting yourself go.
Yeah.
Letting yourself go.
We're going off the notion
Man or
that
woman, just
a
letting
man or a
yourself
woman
go.
is letting themselves go, because I've seen it way too many times. I mean, firsthand, I'll see people walking around. You see this pretty girl with this guy that you know that was kept himself up for a long time, and then now he's like 300 pounds on a rice and gravy and Coors Light diet. All right, I don't see how you can do that. One, if I'm looking at it from a perspective, I want my wife, if I get married, I want my wife to always be looking good and taking care of her body. You know why? Because I'm always making sure that I'm eating healthy or I'm taking care of what I got to look good. I want my wife to do the same thing. Keep yourself up. You should always be trying to stay attractive for the person you're with, because that directly ties into intimacy, in my opinion. You can't go to bed and have sex with somebody who you're not physically attracted to anymore. You could say this and that, oh, we've been together X amount of years, I'll see into her soul. No, the fact of the matter is, you still acknowledge beauty.
I feel like weight gain also is like, well, with your weight, it's like the most noticeable way of improving or not improving yourself that people see, because obviously it's like what you look like. And so if you're not actively doing that one thing that everyone can see to improve yourself, what other parts of your life are you dropping the ball on to improve yourself? And that's probably leading into other aspects of your life and your marriage, or that's not working.
Yeah, a good analogy of it is, you see this couple that has been together for a long time, right? It goes back to complacency. What happens whenever you get together with somebody for X amount of years? All right. In some ways, you will get complacent one way or the other. You will. And then if you catch that, that's the beauty of it, though. You catch that. If you're constantly trying to improve yourself, if you both are on a constant mission to constantly improve yourself, you can't lose that intimacy, because you're always striving for bigger things. Once people get into marriages and long-term relationships, it's like they stop. They stop caring about what they look like because, oh, I locked her down. All right.
Or they stop caring about themselves or who they are.
A lot of times guys go, oh, I locked her down. I'm good to go, man. I can go ahead and drink all the beer I want to, eat anything I want to, and I'm good. She ain't never going to leave me. Oh, yeah, partner, tell me about your sex life. Tell me how well that's going for you. Probably not well. Probably not well.
Yep. I think it's not just the weight gain, it's also the difference in alignment, kind of like what Carter kind of touched on. It's like, if I'm doing everything in my power to be as fit as I could be, and she's not, or vice versa, I'm not doing everything I can to be as healthy as possible as she is. It's like, well, that difference in alignment is going to create a dichotomy in the relationship, because it obviously aligns with your goals.
Now let's bring in this question to you then. Let's bring in this question. How would you go about expressing to your partner that you would like them to lose a little weight or work out with you or get in a little better shape? How would you go about that?
Just communicate it to them.
But how would you communicate with them? Because obviously you don't want to sit there and say, honey, you're getting fat.
No, nobody does that. If you're doing that, you're just being a rude. No one says that. Just like, look, man, like, let's be real here. We're not doing the best we could be to do the best that we could. It's like, you understand it, I understand it. Like, we're not going to sugarcoat it, but at the end of the day, I'm not here to insult you. I just understand that you're not living up to your fullest potential, and neither am I. Or maybe I am. It's like, look, man, I'm living up to my fullest potential and you're not. And because I see myself going places in the future, I know that because of where you are headed, that those paths don't align. And so eventually it's going to create a division that will cause a division so large that we can't bring those two back together. So it's either you do something about it now, or eventually it's going to lead to us to a place that we don't want to be at. And I think that difference is what causes a lot of separation.
Well, why'd you refer to me as Andrew Tate, sir?
Oh, no reason.
Did you have something?
Yeah, Miss Alaina?
No, I think I really like what you said. Just kind of, we're not doing our best. How can we, even if it's not all you, or not all her or whoever, like, just kind of, don't be a dick about it.
Counterpoint,
But
start being passive aggressive and just make salad for dinner every single night.
I mean, there's so many different ways you can go about it. I just think at the end of the day that you should continue to do the same things that you did to attract that person to you in the first place.
Yeah.
Rather than give up on them. You shouldn't get complacent with saying, look, I tied her down or I tied him down. I'm good to go.
Well, everybody should want to continue growing and be better.
The reality is, how many times do you see now that couple walking in the grocery store where the woman has that Justin Bieber haircut sliced down to the left or right and wearing the baggy clothes, and the man and the woman have all these kids running around. They just look like they hate each other. You see that a little bit more often than none.
Yeah, I think that I don't think that it's I don't really think it's necessarily like a thought that you're having, like, oh, you know, this or that. Is I think it's just kind of gradually with time. That's just what happens, you know. It's like, I mean, as society has moved on, we've naturally become a society where we're not as active as we used to be. So it's like, just as time naturally progresses, we're naturally going to gain weight. It's just you have to take actual effort.
This topic is like the excessiveness of it.
Yeah, it's like you have to counter it. You physically have to make a decision.
Adding 500 pounds, you know, we're not talking about 15 pounds.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't think that. Like, I don't think that it's like a conscious decision that they're making. Like, oh, I don't have to court her anymore, so I'm just gonna gain weight. No, it's just naturally the stuff that I was doing before naturally slows down with time. You know, so you're naturally going to gain weight because you're not as active. You have to make an actual effort to reverse what you've started, you know, and it's like, I mean, it's just difficult, you know, and so that's what I think, I think that is what happens. I don't think it's like, oh, I've courted her and I've won, so now I'm like, I could celebrate. No, it's just, I'm with her now, and now all those things that I was doing before, I'm just naturally just not doing anymore, because now I have other priorities. I have work, I have kids, I have responsibilities. So it's like, I don't have as much time to go to the gym. I don't have as much time to go running in the morning. I don't have as much time.
But you have time to eat clean.
I mean, that is true. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's not efforts that can be made. And the idea is that you do want to, but I think that that's the difficult route to take, and most people just don't think about it. That's what I think.
I don't find it to be that difficult of a route to take.
It actually is, because if
it were clean,
because if it were easy, everybody'd be doing it.
To eat clean.
Yeah, not everybody does it. How many people do you know eat clean, Scotty? Everybody recognizes that, you know, just naturally with time, people get bigger because they're not doing all that stuff. It's not easy to eat clean. It's not easy to exercise. Saying
not for every meal, like for the most part, just eating right and healthy.
You also live in South Louisiana. Where
I'm biased in the situation.
Is it worth it? That's a different question. Is it worth it to eat clean and eat exercise? Of course, Scotty. But is it easy? No. Because if it were easy, that's what everybody would be doing.
But it's easy to eat just good food.
Okay, yeah. But which is
healthier food?
Which is easier, going to the shore?
That's about your choices.
Yes, exactly. But the idea is that your choices, it's like people tend to make the choice that has the least amount of resistance. So if it were easy, everybody would be doing it, but it's not. Which is easier, taking your bike to work or driving your car?
Driving your car.
Of course, exactly. So that's calories that you're not burning.
I think people are not willing to work for things.
What's easier, packing your lunch or going to McDonald's?
No, exactly. Like, which is easier? Do I want to go to the store and count macros and exercise and do all this other stuff that adds, you know, all these additional responsibilities in my life? Or do I just want to stop at McDonald's on the way home?
It's not.
I'm just saying.
I think people make it more difficult than it is, though. Like, I don't have this crazy gym and food life. I buy fresh stuff. I work out at home. Like,
everybody's body is different. Some people have faster metabolisms than others. Some people,
all that plays a part.
Yeah, so it's like people think that. But I'm
saying, don't say you don't have time. You have time for what you want to have time for.
No, we're not making excuses for people to be overweight. What I'm saying, it is not easy.
No,
I'm biased there though, man, because
I get it. I get it.
I came from the standpoint of, you know, having that thyroid disease.
You used to be heavier, and now you're not. You've made the choices, and now you're reaping the reward.
But I think everybody can do it.
Can everyone do it? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes. But is it easy? No. Because if it were easy, everybody would be doing it.
But I'm saying it's a lot easier for you to eat clean instead of going to that fast food restaurant than it is to have to work out every day. You can make the choice, the conscious decision to eat clean.
No, because I have to go to the store.
So what's the difference? Subway or McDonald's? You got both of them next to you.
No, which is easier? Going to the store, buying groceries, spending money on that, bringing it home, cooking it, preparing it, and making it edible, right? Or stopping at McDonald's. Which is easier?
There's 10 to 15 minute meals.
Okay, I mean, fair enough, yeah. But you'd have to go to the store and get all that and then bring it home and then heat it up there.
Well, yeah, you're going to be waiting in line at McDonald's for 10 to 15 minutes.
Easier. Yeah, but which is easier? Do I just want to sit in line and, I mean, just chill on my phone and look at TikToks until I get to the...
That's not being
lazy. I think it's just
being prepared.
I'm not making excuses for it or why it's acceptable. I'm just saying it's not as easy as y'all think. It's the path of least resistance to make these unhealthy choices.
No, and it's not easy. We're lazy these days.
Exactly.
You know, people are lazy these days.
Exactly.
Marriage isn't easy.
If they're lazy, they're taking the options that have the least amount of responsibility or activity involved, and so ergo they have to deal with the consequences of those down the line, which is weight gain.
Well, who the hell is this ergo then, huh?
Shut up.
Next one.
Unrealistic expectations. It's easy to go into a marriage with lofty expectations, expecting your spouse in the marriage to live up to your image of what they should be. These expectations can put a lot of strain on the other person, leaving you feeling let down and setting your spouse up for failure. Wrong expectation setting can become one of the reasons for divorce.
Well, one of these things I guess could tie in is, do you decide to get married early without knowing a person, your expectations of them? So that'd be, man, that's kind of a little bit to dive into there, because your expectations of a person depends on what you set them at, I guess. That's kind of a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more of an idealistic versus realistic.
I feel like that also goes hand in hand with communication.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I think that there's a difference between like communicating effectively with someone or just a lack thereof,
which we dove into.
Versus you should be this, and I'm not happy that you aren't.
But maybe you didn't spend the time getting to know them.
That's a good point.
But would that tie into getting married too early?
No, I really don't even know what that means.
Because I'll tell y'all one thing.
Because what does that mean?
The happiest marriages I've seen so far are the ones who've gotten married before a year of knowing each other.
Okay, so you're coming from the position of the reason why there's a lack of or there's too much expectation because they don't really understand each other. That they have too high of hopes when they get together. Because that's what I'm trying to figure out. What exactly does that mean?
Scotty's going to get a mail order bride. That's what I got out of that.
It's like too high of expectations.
Remember we were talking about earlier? Russian.
Yes.
A Russian mail order.
Russian mail order. I just don't.
Go fight the Ukraine, you.
I don't know what that means to have too high of expectations.
Well, maybe it's like before kids or something. Like, okay, I expect my husband to be or my wife to be this type of parent, and maybe it's not saying they're a bad parent, but maybe they're not living up to what that ideal parent of your child
This is all communication.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It's all like 5 of these things could be like wrapped into one.
No, because I think that if like someone has too much expectation of another individual, it's like I can communicate that effectively.
And
I can communicate that every day. Yeah, and that's divorce. That's divorce. That's not that's not a lack of communication.
That's just in any relationship.
Oh, but okay, you're saying like you have these expectations and you're communicating what these expectations are, and they're still not hitting it.
They're just not meeting that quota, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just how they're thinking of it. It's like, well, this person expects me to be this.
Well, no one's perfect.
That.
Don't be a dick. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, so the next one is lack of intimacy. Not feeling connected to your partner can quickly ruin a marriage because it leaves couples feeling as though they're living with a stranger or more like roommates than spouses. This can be from a lack of physical or emotional intimacy and isn't always about sex. If you are constantly giving your spouse the cold shoulder, know that it can become the ground for divorce over time. Often couples struggle with different sex drives and different sexual appetites. This can really plague a couple as they try to get their needs met. In addition, at different stages of life, our sexual needs can change, which can lead to feelings of confusion and rejection. Ignoring your partner's sexual needs is being called the #1 cause of divorce in recent times. Making your relationship intimate and special is the responsibility of both partners. Practice little acts of kindness, appreciation, and enjoy physical intimacy as much as possible to sweeten your relationship. Scotty.
In other words, spice up your sex life, people.
No, it is not.
What?
Sorry, that is not what they're saying.
You can, yeah. Well, it could go into it.
Now it looks like the poker room.
There's a bunch of things you could do.
Yeah.
Like that's.
Let me tell you a story about that.
You should keep it spicy.
I love you, Pac-Man.
Of course, but Scotty just likes to boil things. He likes to take these complex ideas and pull it down to just one sentence. And it's like, Scotty, that's not how it works.
And your conversation is like going on around the roundabout in Youngsville.
At least that makes sense.
I need the Dramamine after I'm done talking to him.
What's the question?
So it's talking about intimacy and how
lack of intimacy that causes divorces.
People become complacent, and you have to know each other's needs and wants and desires. Like that needs to be, because this is another communication issue.
Spice it up, baby.
Yeah.
But you also have to know, like, you could have one partner that's like way hornier than the other.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
That's anyone who dates Scotty.
Not
Scotty's a Mormon, you guys.
Scotty soaks.
As an ordained minister, I decree this statement invalid.
So yeah, lack of intimacy. I think that that's a good point. Like I think that like you said, like one person is more aroused than the other. That would cause issues down the road. It's like, you know, if one person's like, you know, I wanted, you know, like I wanted this much all the time, and one person's just like, I'm fine with it like once every other year, it's like that would cause issues.
That's horrible.
But I think it's up to the man at the end of the day to get his woman to that state of wanting to be intimate.
No, it does not exist like that, Scotty. It's not all about the man is in control and I am God and I make the choices for you. No,
That's why I called him Andrew Tate.
I think as a man,
No, it's not.
Your job is to get your woman to open up to you.
No, because Scotty, as like, for example, just a scientific, you know, as time moves on, right? Men's testosterone lowers, right? And women's, I think, or is it estrogen or testosterone? Whatever it is, it rises. So women's sexual desire increases as they age, but men's goes down, right?
There's fixes for that.
That's not a fault of any person.
They got
It's
little
not
blue,
a fault, but
they got little blue
you
pills
address
for that.
you address that issue.
Yeah, you got little blue pills
but
for
he's
that.
trying to make it seem like if she doesn't desire it enough, that's the man's fault. It's like, no, biologically.
No, but
That's-
as a woman, I want to be like swooned or in my kitchen. And
Well,
like,
yeah, but at the end of the day, like, there's some people out there that just naturally they do not have that desire as often as other people.
that's something you need to like come forward with your partner. Like, hey, like I'm,
But
really
how
not
much
that sexual?
How much of it can you communicate before it's actually effective, right? Because there has to be a middle ground, right? Is what y'all are saying. There's
You've got to be compatible in that area.
There's compromise.
What are you gonna compromise? Okay, honey, I want sex on these days. Is that what you're gonna talk about?
No, that's what y'all are saying.
People do that.
You're sitting here saying
People
that it's the
do
man's
that.
fault.
Okay.
You're saying it's the man's fault if she doesn't desire it as much as you desire it. I'm saying that is not the case. And I'm just saying that I think that, one, there's a biological factor to it because there's some people who just desire it more than others just naturally because of their natural hormones. And it's just like, okay, well, how much of a degree can you have that separation where it's like, I want it once a week versus I want it once a year? And it's like, well, how can you meet in the middle where both parties are satisfied and it doesn't affect the relationship long term? Because I think that it's like, well, if I'm not getting my needs met as often as I want them to be met, I would have to compromise to get less than what I want. But the other person would have to compromise to a degree that it's more than what they want. You know, so it's like, how much of a difference can there be before it terminates the relationship?
Well, you should know about that. You should know how each other feel about that before you even get married.
Yeah, like that's in early phases.
But
But I know people change as you get older. You know, your body chemically just changes and stuff. But that's why we have doctors, and there's things you can do or foods you can eat that, you know, will get you back on that track if that's where you want to be.
Gentlemen, are you lacking the stamina it takes to go down and get your woman pleasurable in bed and to get her to open up to you? Are you lacking the jaw stamina in bed to pleasure your woman? If you are, Jaws of Size is the right one for you. Try Jaws of Size, one of 4 stages, generally, gradually increasing your jaw strength down to the core. Try it out.
All right, then. Well, I guess on that
I
note.
love the way you said that. I'm sending that to Brandon Harris, and he is going to. That's awesome. I love you, Carter.
All right, well, let's go ahead.
That is the best fucking thing I've heard all day.
Let's go ahead and move on then. Lack of equality is number 8 on the list. Lack of equality comes closely behind the number 1 cause of divorce, lack of intimacy in recent times. When one partner feels that they take on more responsibility in the marriage, it can alter their view of the other person and lead to resentment. Resentment often snowballs to become one of the reasons for divorce. It is a leading cause of divorce. Every couple must negotiate through their own and unique set of challenges and find their own way of living together as two equals who enjoy a respectful, harmonious, and joyful relationship.
I can't speak on this one.
This is actually a big one whenever me and my wife, before we got married, this is one of the things that we had communicated beforehand. I was just like, you know, like
who's going to do what?
Yeah, like granted, it literally, I told her up front, I was like, you know, this is one of those bridges that we have to cross once we get there. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to like communicate that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there also is a willingness to it because at the end of the day, like for example, I cook, right? Some people might say, well, that's not as manly. You know, a woman should be in the kitchen. But my wife,
it's not unmanly.
But she likes to do laundry. I hate doing the laundry.
She likes to. I need to meet her. She likes laundry.
She likes to do the laundry. She sits down. She puts on music. She puts on her favorite show. She makes a day out of it, right? She enjoys it, right? But I hate it. So like, I think that like what we kind of started doing, because we're just developing this, is like I'm constantly communicating with her. I'm like, look, man, like, what do you want to do? What are you not willing to do? And let's try to figure out a way that we can kind of allocate responsibilities so that way no one is feeling feelings of resentment.
Or maybe like you do laundry for 2 weeks and she does dishes for 2 weeks.
No. She doesn't. She hates being in the kitchen. She doesn't want anything to do with the dishes, the kitchen, cooking.
Oh, so
she doesn't want to do any of that.
You established that already.
Yeah, like I'm just like, well, I don't mind doing it, and she doesn't mind doing the laundry, so it's a win-win,
right?
You know, because it's like we're both getting what we need. I get my laundry.
I think this goes back to communication.
Yeah, like well, it's also a fact that like so the way our personalities work is that I'm a very giving person. I naturally like to give, right? But I know that like if she's constantly asking me to do things, then I'm constantly willing to give her what she wants, and I want to put on my plate as much as possible to help her out because it's just in my nature, right? But I also understand that I have to consider myself over time, that if I do too much over a long period of time, that it's going to start making me like it's gonna burn me out.
You're gonna feel a certain way.
You know, so it's not just communication, it's also understanding the reality of the situation. Like, look, you know, like here's what you like to do, here's what I like to do. Like, can we, you know, and just kind of adjust as we see fit. Because we just ran into this the other day where like we just got the dog. We barely had it a month. And I was like, why didn't you do this? And she was like, because that's your job. And I was like, we never discussed that. And I was like, okay. And then we kind of discussed it from there. But the idea was that I was like, okay, so this is literally one of those things that has to be updated.
Yeah, you can't discuss it one time and it's just gonna work for the next 10 years.
Yeah, but that's just what I found out. It's like I don't want to have too much responsibility on her foot, but I also don't want to have any on my, you know, too much on my back to where eventually over time we just feel as though the relationship is unfair, which is what they're referencing.
Alrighty, so we'll go to number 9 on the list, which is not being prepared for marriage. A surprising number of 75% of couples of all ages have blamed not being prepared.
It's number 9, Scotty. It's not number 1.
Not being prepared for married life for the demise of their relationship. Divorce rates are highest among couples in their 20s. Lack of preparation is one of the most common reasons for divorce. Almost half the divorces occur in the first 10 years of marriage, especially between the 4th and 8th anniversary. A little fact there. All right, take your soapbox, Scotty.
He has something to say.
I see you looking over there.
I'm not looking at you.
We have me and him discuss this in the car almost
ad nauseum
every single day.
Because I think it's BS.
Okay, so we do know, like, you can't prepare for every life situation. I think there's
No.
You can prep to an extent.
What they're saying is that like they get into a relationship too fast. It's like, well, you're not ready to be married, and they jump into marriage too soon.
Okay.
I think that's what they're trying to reference.
And like I said, the happiest couples I know right now are the ones who got married at least a year before they even dated. That's the craziest thing to me. But what I'm saying is a lot of times people jump into something too quick without being completely comfortable with their situation. And then they rely on that other person to carry the load. Mm-hmm. And I say that is selfish. I think that's completely selfish for somebody to do. Because you just want to lock them down and then you rely on them the entire time. How is that fair to the other person? It's not going to make something work.
I want to ask you your opinion about this because I'm about to tear him a new one.
Well, I want to hear you first.
So I disagree with him wholeheartedly because I feel like I can make he's sitting here saying it's selfish of you to try to lock down another individual too soon because there's responsibilities and stuff like that.
You can lock someone down and not be married.
We're talking about marriage.
We're talking about marriage.
Like getting someone to marry
you. Yeah. Okay. He's saying getting married too soon.
But also, you dated your wife for 5 years.
If I had the choice to marry her sooner, I would have. Just wasn't on the table.
But you disagree with the notion that you should have to live with each other because you talked about in the car about living with somebody for at least a year and a half, 2 years before you marry them.
People who live with each other actually have a higher divorce rate than people who don't.
Yes, we agree. Yeah, he brought the study up too.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. People who do not live with each other,
which pissed off my married friends when I told them that. Because they all live together.
The statistic basically states that people who live together before marriage are more likely to get divorced. They have higher divorce rates. And the reason for it, see, Scotty has this opinion that whenever you're considering marriage, that you need to date someone for a considerable amount of time, and one of those things that you need to do before marriage is to move in with them, so that way you understand them on a more fundamental basis to establish a long-term relationship with. And then if you decide that, okay, this is the person I want to be with, for years to come, that's whenever you would lock them down. I actually told him that I actually had that opinion before I got married. I thought that I had to move in with my wife before I married her, because I had the same exact position as Scotty, which is, that you need to be with someone for a set amount of time. You need to move in with them. You need to get to know them before you jump into marriage, because like this reason stating that if you jump to marriage too soon, that there's a higher likelihood that you're going to get divorced. But what I've basically found out was that whenever you do that, you basically have this mentality of you establish this relationship based on the premise that if things do not work out between us, that I will trade you in for another. That's how you are treating the relationship whenever you do that.
Whenever you move in together?
Yes, whenever you move in together.
I don't know if I agree with that.
That's actually
what the percentage. What is the percentage of people who get divorced whenever they live with somebody compared to that?
But
y'all remember that?
Well, let me look that up, and y'all could keep talking.
Yeah, but that's actually exactly what you're doing. There's no other reason for you to establish that I need to move in with someone before I married them. The only reason why you would do that is because you're saying, the moment I dislike what's happening here, I'm going to trade you in for someone else, right? And what happens is that whenever you get married, there's no transition. Now, this isn't my opinion. This is actually what the statistics state, right? Is that by you creating that mentality that if I don't like you, I'll just trade you in for another. Whenever you get married, there's no transition. So there's nothing stopping you from thinking that, well, once I don't like them, I'm just going to get rid of them. As per whenever you decide to get married before you move in, the idea is that the point of marriage is you're saying, look, despite our circumstances, I'm locking myself to you forever. So it's either we stick with the problem and just have it forever, or we deal with this right here. But we don't have the choice to leave. That's the point of marriage. But whenever you marry someone before you move in, you never create that mentality of, well, if I don't like them, I'm going to get rid of them. You commit to them before you start your life together. So you have a higher chance of having a successful marriage.
I think moving in kind of is committing.
No, it's actually not. That's exactly what you're doing. You're showing a lack of commitment to that person, that I want to figure out who this person is before I commit to them.
I would need to know who you are before you moved in.
That's what you're doing. You're saying that I lack what I do is I am not fully committed to you. So I'm going to move in with you to see who you are first. And then if I like you, then I'll marry you. But you're simultaneously making that mental, kind of subconscious agreement that if I don't like you, I'm just going to trade you in for someone else. Living with someone isn't exactly a commitment.
Can they get married and do the same thing though?
Move in together?
Yeah, once you get married, they can.
No. The point of marriage is that.
In.
The point of marriage is stating that despite what happens, we are in this together forever till we die. That's the point of marriage. There's no in between of I'm gonna get married to you, and if I don't like you, then I'll just divorce you. It's that's not what the point of marriage is. The point of marriage is the point of marriage is that if I like you enough that all the problems that we are gonna have will be worth it in the long term.
So this comes from a 2021 PsychologyToday.com article that mentioned a study across all years examined. In that study, the odds of divorce were 1.31 times higher for women who cohabited prior to marriage. So that's what the why is what you're trying to get into. That
yes,
but that is according to the studies, that is the facts of the situation.
But whenever you marry someone before you move in, it's look, I don't care who you are or what you do, I'm stuck with you forever. You make that decision before y'all move in. But if you move in before that, that's what you're trying to establish. You're saying, look, I don't even know who you are, so I'm not going to commit myself to you yet. Because I know exactly what that is, because that's the position I came from.
No, I get it. When I was married before, we didn't live together before, but my parents were very strict then. There was no living together before you're married. So that we didn't really have that choice. But
Yeah.
I mean, we could have, but now that I'm divorced, I mean, I have a lot of different views than I had, 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So, I mean, moving forward, nowadays, I would live with someone first before I got married. But in my opinion, it doesn't mean I'm any less committed to them.
No. That's actually what it means. Like, there's literally no other reason for you to move in with
But I'm saying
someone.
me as an individual.
No. That's literally why that is. That's literally the psychology behind that decision. That's like I literally went and I read and took an entire course on the psychology of literally just that decision.
Where was the course at?
The University of Toronto.
Jordan Peterson?
Yep.
Yeah, you took a course on Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, he has all his lectures online, and I literally watched that entire thing, and that's literally what helped me make that decision. I was like, okay, like
Coach Corey Wayne says differently.
Once I literally understood that, I was like, that's exactly what I thought. I literally thought that I had to figure out whether or not I liked my wife before I decided to marry her, and the idea is that that's actually not the case.
Well, here's a little wrinkle in it all. Cohabitation may confer short-term benefits in the sense that divorce risk is lower for these couples right after the wedding, within the first 6 months, and slightly lower in the subsequent 6 months. During that initial year, couples that did not live together first are at a higher risk for divorce. Maybe cohabitators have less of an abrupt transition after marriage, and this gives them an initial advantage. However, the tide turns after that first year, and people who cohabitated before marriage end up having elevated risk relative to those who did not.
Yep. Because the idea is that if you marry someone before you move into them, you're pre-committed. And then there's nothing to transition from.
But then it just said that you could be very surprised at what you're dealing with the moment y'all move in.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I don't understand that position. I get exactly why you think that. I've done my homework. And that's exactly what it is. There's no the point of marriage is that whenever you decide to be with someone, you're like, I am locking myself, I'm chaining myself to this person for eternity. There's no getting out of it. So meaning if we have a problem, it's either going to be there till we die or we can resolve it. But neither of us have the choice to run. But whenever you move in with somebody before, you're saying, look, the moment I have a big enough problem with you, I'm just going to choose not to be with you. I need to make my mind up as we go along. But there's nothing stopping you whenever you get married that transitions that thought process.
Well, I think there are a lot of situations that could come into play, though, there. Like, number one.
What?
There's a lot of situations that could come into play there, though. So are you going to choose, if you decide to do that, to work it out with?
Well, it's just talking about cohabitation. It's
I know, but I'm saying
don't live together.
I'm saying, but you're saying any situation that comes your way, y'all have to be able to work out.
That's what marriage is for. Yeah.
Is adultery? Does that apply?
I mean, technically, I guess, yeah. But it's also written in the vows that you're not going to do that. That you're making that vow before God, your family.
Which brings me back to my number one point: get a prenuptial agreement.
Let's go to the last one, shall we? Physical and emotional abuse is number 10. Not feeling connected to your partner can quickly ruin a marriage because it leaves couples feeling as though they're living with a stranger or more like roommates than spouses. This can be a form of lack of physical or emotional intimacy and isn't always about sex. If you are constantly giving your spouse the cold shoulder, know that it can become the ground for divorce over time. Oh, wait, that was weird.
Yeah, I was about to say, didn't we just cover that?
That was weird.
I was like, how's that abuse?
That was weird. Okay. Sorry. Physical or emotional abuse is a sad reality for some couples and contributes to 23.5% of divorces. It doesn't always stem from the abuser being a bad person. Deep emotional issues are usually to blame. Regardless of the reason, no one should tolerate abuse and must remove yourself from the relationship safely is important. And then there's a video about identifying emotional and physical abuse and all that.
Forms of
let me say, any man who puts his hands on a woman, you're not a man.
It's not just physical. It's
But
also
any
emotional.
Any
emotional abuse, any kind of abuse that you put a woman through, I have no respect for you as a man.
That goes both ways.
And it does go both ways.
I don't think you should be advocating for one side or the other. I think that it's literally both.
I will
don't
sit
think
here strongly. I will sit here strongly and say, the majority of the time, it is a man putting his hands on a woman.
I mean, I'm not going to make that. I mean, I don't think you. First of all, you can make that claim because it's physical and emotional abuse, and it's 25.3% of divorces end in that. So it could be literally both. It could be physical, but it can also be emotional, which would be like manipulation, for example. Like I'm constantly gaslighting you into giving me what I want. It's like that's emotional abuse. You know, trying to sit here and make you feel like you're not as worthy of a person,
or that your feelings aren't valid.
Yeah, your feelings aren't valid. Constantly neglecting
be a man
you.
and stand up for yourself.
I mean, it goes both ways though, because the idea is that a man can do that to a woman. He can emotionally abuse a woman too, and a woman can emotionally abuse a man. I mean, heck, a woman can physically abuse a man as well. You know, it's just, I mean, it's not as reported. You know, and the idea is that because of people like you that say, well, you're not a man if you don't, you know, if you let your woman or something like that. It's like because of that stigma. You know, I'm just saying that it can go both ways. I think that both people it's like, which is more likely? We're not going to talk about. We're just going to talk about the topic of physical or emotional abuse as to why.
Be
that
a
leads.
man. Yeah, I will say that.
Yeah.
I will be the person who says that. If somebody is emotionally abusing you, if a woman is emotionally abusing you, be a man and stand up for yourself.
Well, sometimes it's not as prevalent. I mean, it's not as obvious that it's taking place. You don't realize it until sometimes too late. You know,
what do you mean by that? I mean,
because gaslighting. You know, just like, oh, your sister would have taken out the trash for me. It's like little remarks like that. It doesn't sound like much in the moment.
Go ask her to do it.
Yeah, but that's just a way that it can go under the radar.
Scotty's not getting emotionally abused.
Yeah, clearly.
Not gonna happen.
He does the abuse.
No, I don't think anybody should take shit from anybody.
No, the only abuse is your chest hair.
And that has a mind of its own, motherfucker.
No, I think the abuse is my eyes.
Enjoy the sight you're seeing.
I don't want to. That's why it's abuse.
Embrace it. We're out of time. We have out of time. Fuck you. Let me kill you.
Part 2.
Yeah, we're gonna have a part 2 on this. Got to let Carter get out of here because he's been working his ass off all day, which we appreciate. Sewer Gators. Y'all got to check out Sewer Gators, by the way. Is it on YouTube or Amazon Prime?
It is on Tubi for free, and it's on Amazon Prime for 99 cents. Tubi has some ads in the middle of it, but you can get it for free on Tubi.
Sewer Gators, a Carter Semino film.
Coming out in a couple of months, we have Killer Kites as well.
Killer Kites.
And don't forget about Silent but Deadly as well on Amazon Prime. It's about killer mimes.
SPD.
Killer Mimes.
Killer mimes.
Oh, God, that one's freaky. That's like that Terrifier movie, dude. That is the most grotesque movie I've ever seen in my life.
Which is?
Terrifier and Terrifier 2. Don't watch it. It will give you nightmares.
There's a new horror movie out, Megan.
I think your nipples are going to give me nightmares.
My nipples would cut through steel right now. All right. Well, folks, that is all we have here today on Unwoken. Thank you to our lovely guest, Miss Alaina Hebert and Alex Mejia.
You're welcome.
And thank you to Carter Semino producing this fine show as always. Make sure to check out Acadiana Cast Network on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as Lord Scotty D on Instagram, Alaina M. Hebert on Instagram, and Alex is just Alex. He doesn't have social media. And as always, folks, I am Scott Davis. This is Unwoken. Take care.